So this was the reading from my science fiction fantasy book club last month, and I was initially not going to read it because it didn't sound like what I would like. My impression was that this is basically First Law meets Hunger Games, but there was someone else who I generally trust her recommendations. She had the same reaction, but she read it and she was like, oh, I actually really liked this. So I read the book. I liked it enough to read the second book. I was thinking I was going to read the third book, and then they ended on a cliffhanger that it would have been a lot less bad if they had just made it an epilogue, because the second to last chapter had a minor cliffhanger, and I was expecting the last chapter would resolve that, but instead it left it unresolvable, introducing a major cliffhanger. And if it was an epilogue, it would have been less annoying. I still think it should have just been the next book. I hate when books do this, so I was like, okay, I already bought the third book, but I don't know if when I'll read it. That kind of thing just annoys me so much. However, when I was reading this book, I was realizing there was something he could have done here that would have been really interesting. And in order to explain that, I'm going to need to have some spoilers for this book. Not completely spoiling the ending, but if you don't like that, go away now. And I knew he wasn't going to do this because if he did, it would have been considered like an avant-garde thing. And I'm someone, I genuinely like original avant-garde stuff in books. Well, it depends. I think when it's original and says something interesting, I like it. When it's just pushing limits and boundaries and conventions for the sake of it, I hate it. And it's interesting because a lot of people who want to present themselves as cultural elites can't seem to tell the difference between those two, and I feel like there's a very clear difference to me. However, anyways, I knew that given that this is an extremely popular series, it almost certainly would not be doing what I was hoping it would, or it might be well regarded by critics, but it would not be popular. However, and now I'm going to get into talking about spoiling a little bit. So in this book, this character, he is from the lowest case. So people are in case based on color names. And so the lowest case, the manual laborers, is red. The highest case, the rulers, are gold. And he is physically modified to become a member of the gold case. Then he meets one other person who is a member, red, who is modified in the same way and is passing as a gold, and someone else who looks like he might be a red passing as a gold as well. And so I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, this could be a really interesting story if you have... It turns out, basically... So I've talked about I want to read this, got this by Pareto, and I'm reading it. And the reason I was so interested is he has this theory of the circulation of the elites and how that operates, where basically the elites, and I think Gaetano Mosca, the ruling class, might have a bit with that as well, so maybe I should read that before I finish this, but although Pareto and Mosca worked independently. But anyways, so the idea is the elites, they want to bring in Pareto's, certainly, I know Pareto's version based on summaries, and I haven't actually finished reading, haven't gotten to this part, which is in the second volume, but basically, they want to have people coming up from the underclasses and joining the elite so that it both keeps the elite class fresh and keeps them on top of their game, and it deprives the lower classes of leadership. However, eventually they stop being able to do that, and that's when you have revolutions that overthrow the elites and bring in a completely new elite. And so I was thinking, it could be very interesting if it turns out this was the golds, basically finding the most promising people from the lower castes, making them golds, but convincing them they are imposters so that they are always trying to prove themselves. And that would be interesting to me because I'm going to have a future video on this, but I had multiple opportunities to join the elites that as an autistic person, I didn't realize that was what was happening, and I didn't realize what I was supposed to do it. And so I missed that and struggled with imposter syndrome and trying to do what middle-class people do instead of what the actual elites do. And so for me especially, I'm like, this would have been a really interesting thing that he could have done. And now I'm thinking, I might at some point want to write a book doing this, but I have a lot of books I want to write already, and I'm prioritizing trying to make a company. And once I have an income enough that I never have to worry about money again, then I'll really focus on writing. And I'll still probably never write everything I want to write. So if you want to steal this idea and try to write it, please do, because I would love to see this in a book. I think it could be a fantastic book. And someone actually emailed me like a month ago asking if I wanted a free copy of his book, and I should actually get back to him on that. see if he's still interested, because it sounded somewhat interesting, but I wasn't sure if I would actually read it, and I felt bad saying yes if I wasn't going to read it. But at any rate, if you try to write this concept of there is like an elite who is deliberately like recruiting people from the underclass and convincing them they're imposters, and you do it in a way that sounds interesting and original in the setting, feel free to email me and ask me if I'll read it when you finish, because I would love to see this, and I won't promise, like, if your writing's terrible, I'm going to stop, like, 20 pages in, maybe. And if your writing's not awful, but it's boring, I'll probably stop, like, 60, 70 pages in. But if it's interesting, I will read it, because I would love to see this in a book, and I think it would be a neat idea. So, anyways, just wanted to share that idea quickly. Thanks for watching. I'm Magpie, this is Leela, and we'll see you all in the next one.